world where power is redefined by technology. The global power competition has reached new heights, affecting international politics, the technology market, and everyday life. Technological evolution is transforming economies, reshaping boundaries, and uncovering uncharted territories. In recent years, China has challenged the US advantage in engineering and science. Over the past 2 decades, China has built competitive renewable energy and space industries, and currently possesses approximately 40% of the most powerful existing supercomputers. Meanwhile, South Korea dominates the semiconductor and chip industries, and Singapore has mastered the use of digital technologies, producing leading sustainable and green solutions. Before we proceed, just a quick quiz question. In the long term, what percentage of GDP loss would the world economy incur due to geo-economic fragmentation? A, 0 to 0.1%. B, 8 to 9%. C, 0.2 to 7%. Or D, 10 to 14%. The right answer is none other than C, 0.2 to 7%. But based on IMF data, if technological decoupling is added to the mix, some countries could see losses of up to 12% of GDP. After an exhilarating warm-up, the stage is set. It's time to discuss how politics shape high technology and how it's changing our future and the business world. And also, to learn about the powerful effects this tech race has on Eurasian countries. Geopolitics in technology.
And now let me invite Mr. Norbert CSIZMADIA, the President of the Board of Trustees at the Pallas Athénée Domus Meriti Foundation, who will moderate the panel discussion dedicated to geopolitics. Mr. CSIZMADIA is also a well-known geographer, geopolitical and geoeconomic thinker, and the author of several books.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I'm very welcome to being here of the Budapest Eurasia Forum. So I just want to introduce our Fire Chat Talking panel is Mr. Huiyao Wang. He's a founder and president of the Center of China Globalization and the former constellation of the China State Council. He's former advisor of the Alliance of the Global Talent Organization in the World Bank and the member of International Advisory Board of the Paris Peace Forum. His current position, his facilities research on globalization, global governance, international economy and trade, as well as international relations. And the Center of China and Globalization, including of the top 100 think tank of the global world, including his number 64. So please welcome the President, Huiyao Wang. So first of all, I'm very glad. 1 month ago, I listening you of the Dubai Summer Bridge conference about the connectivity, about complexity, sustainability, and we are here now in Budapest. The Budapest Eurasia Forum is the focusing of the transition and sustainability, and you know we are for the first impression of the site about the peaceful and development, about we are living of age of fusion and networks, and we're living of the age of the new technology. So what do you think about the grand tectonic shift with the new type of power is emerged for the hard and soft powers, even focusing of the innovation power? So how is innovation power playable for international relation and the technological revolution transform economic and government system of Eurasia?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, the organizer, for inviting me. I think this is a wonderful forum, excellently organized. And what I think is actually the technological changes and also the deglobalization, the geopolitics actually is shaping our world now. I mean, you know, we are in Hungary, in Budapest. I mean, this is really at the center of Eurasia. But I think what has been happening in the last several years, particularly last 10 years exactly, we have actually entered into a multipolar world. And then the multipolar world, which means the unipolar world is gone, and where is the multipolar world system to support that? So that is really the challenge. I think also on top of that, we see the technological revolution going on. We see digital revolution, we see AI, we see also connectivity all going on. So I think that in order to really cope with that, we cannot have different silos now. We can have a decoupling or de-risk, and we're starting from from scratch everywhere. And that is going to really damage the global GDP we see in that short video there. I mean, that could be 7–8% losses of the global GDP. So I think it's extremely important that we need to find a common ground and common objectives and common innovation. So I think that fighting climate change, that we have a clean technology innovation, that China is leading that, working with the world on that, and that also on the infrastructure. This super connectivity of Eurasia, this Belt and Road Initiative, and also we can also work with B3W, EU Global Gateway. So I think there's many things that we can work together to really sustain the globalization and become more inclusive, and so we can avoid that different camp blocks and confronting each other. And we are already in a crisis situation. We have to really work very hard to sustain the connectivity and the integrity that we are working together.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, because we are speaking about the multilateral world, but not just only of the multipolar, but even like a very network. And I think of the Geofusion book I write about, if you want to understand our current situation, is needed 3 main passwords: are connectivity, complexity, sustainability across for technology. So is that China is leading of the areas of the technology, including communication, financial service, the way of the dominating of the new energy, infrastructure. We talked about the electronic vehicles. So how is a technological race between China and other countries across the connectivity is important, and how does the technological competition affect of the future of globalization?
It's a big effect. I think now we have innovation. I think China is what they're doing is, of course, I think US is good at 0 to 1, and China probably is good at 1 to 100. But if China is catching up, because forced by the US, for example, there's a CHIPS Act. So when Secretary Raimondo was in Beijing, they found there was a Huawei 5G phone is available, announced at that time. So China probably has to do a lot of innovation on that. But I think what China has done best is really massively in the history of mankind. For example, China has built 70% global speed fast train network. 70% of the world, and have the 2/3 of the global 5G networks. And out of the 10 largest container ports, 7 of them are in China. And China every year graduates about 12 million college graduates. So you see, with that kind of a magnitude, the synergy and productivity and efficiency, that is a technology on a practical basis. And China now is already leading in the solar, in the wind, and particularly in this electric car, vehicle cars now. China produces most of the world electric vehicle car now, and I think, so what we can see is really how we can really all use that together, fight climate change. For example, the clean technology can be applied to the vast economy in the global south. So the digital transformation, the clean technology transformation, climate technology transformation, all those things I think that really helps. That's precisely we need all the big major players working together, and countries like Hungary and Budapest, capital can really connecting everybody would be really great. Particularly Eurasia, it's really the future big continent. We have a big continent. 2,000 years ago, we have the Silk Road already. Let's continue to do that. Let's get super connected. Let's help the global south, and let's avoid the big conflict between the major powers.
In this book, central book is Eurasia Forum, so I can offer is the building of sustainable future of the emerging of Eurasian era, including in your article. It's very, very interesting about the Chinese solution of the globalization. So I read there's a 3-pillar and 7 pathway. So how do you see, what is the solution, the Chinese solution about the globalization, even about the technological singularity, geopolitical singularity, and or the current eras now?
Thank you. I think this book, Geopolitics, is really great, and I'm really happy to contribute one article there. I think 3 pillars of a globalization that we have been saying is that, for China particularly, is that we need really human, capital that human, in terms of that we can mobilize the people. That's really important. Not only in a developed countries, but also in the developing countries. I think that's where we see Africa. We have 1.2 billion, but maybe by next 20 years will be 2 billion. We see India is already bigger than China in terms of population. So I think that is really how we can do that. But then technologically, we really have to equip that. And I also see all this regional transformation going on. We see Asian is particularly emerging strongly. We see BRICS countries reunited, in terms of economic globalization. So people want to really start more with this globalization that is really beneficial to them, rather than we're having the geopolitical globalization. We have a insecure economy. That's really going to damage everyone. So it's very important that we have this, economic globalization that benefits everybody.
Even was so glad when you read about your article in this amazing book, because our institute is a Budapest Center for Long-Term Sustainability. They wrote about the global debate, the 95 theses for the new Eurasian sustainable era. And this title is about the human-centered, complex, comprehensive, and the long-term Eurasian for sustainability. So it's very similar, the 3-pillar and for the 7th path. So I just want to ask about, in this year, in October, we are celebrating of the 10th anniversary year of the Belt and Road Initiative. So I think this is the largest not just only of the master plan, not just only of the vision, but it's the largest program all the human history. The largest investment of the human history. So it's urged the conference in the Beijing, the Belt and Road Forum. How do you see the role the Belt and Road Initiative, opportunities to the transforming world order, and can the BRI define for the new direction of the globalization?
Well, absolutely. I think that what we have seen the challenge of globalization is now, globalization of since the Bretton Woods system that has been implemented 70, 80 years ago. Now we are seeing that losing its steam, because we have a different configuration of the world now. The China's rising Asian, BRICS countries, and so we need to upgrade the system to reflect the reality. But then there's lacking of a common, big, joint cause that we can work together. And I think, according to Chinese experience, if you want to be rich, build roads first. So that has started the infrastructure revolution in China, and then that's greatly transformed China. And China is now the best infrastructure connected country probably in the world now. And I think that can really be happening to, amplify that to the global south. And also connecting Eurasia on that. And then that Belt and Road is, it's 10-year anniversary. It's not really perfect. As I was taking this interview in Eurasia, I said, we could multilize Belt and Road. Multilateral Belt and Road means that we can have more countries participate. I'm glad to see Belt and Road now have a secretarial office, established, and then we hope to get more countries involved. And I was even thinking that Belt and Road Summit we can hold one day in Budapest, that we can have, it can rotating around different countries rather than just holding Beijing only. So I think there's many ways we can get multilateralized and get more countries involved. So I really want to see, for example, that those. China have pioneered this infrastructure awareness of the world. China have launched the BRI 10 years ago, but now you have the follow-ups on that. The Build Back Better World, B3W, EU Global Gateway, and now G20 in India proposed Indian, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. Great. Every major country now realize this is the common cause that we can all work together. But why can't they work together? So let's get the World Bank, AIIB, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, ADB, AFDB, European banks, all those development banks. Let's get, Hungary Central Bank, all join us for this kind of a collective course. So I think we need, the globalization need a major course to work together, in addition to the infrastructure deficit that we have to address, but also the climate. And AI. I was just coming from London yesterday. AI and digital and all those things. So we need a new technology frontier that we have to work together. Otherwise, this world is really falling apart, and then we are really in dangerous situation. So we have to work together. And conferences like this is very important to get all the good ideas.
This is, I call, is a geo-civilization. So the peaceful development, connectivity, a lot of infrastructure, digital, cultural, education, and technological development, the build together, that is very important. So this is, I believe that is the future is Eurasian have to build. So about this last question, is always speaking about innovation, technology, the new way of the Eurasia. I find of the very interesting innovation axis is by the geographical location. I call it like the Kitsing areas, like including of the Korea, Dubai, Israel, Singapore, and in China is Shanghai, Shenzhen, Chengdu, Chongqing, Beijing. So the main global hubs to connect for each other. So the question is, considering this innovation, so what do you think is which country, which regions, which hubs could be the successful this global technological competition, and how could be the winning strategy towards the sustainable future and the successful cooperation?
Well, I think this is really a very interesting question. If we want to predict the future growth of technology, I think, first of all, you need a big application market. I mean, US used to be also very big, but now we see some, disturbance politically. But China, of course, was not innovative enough in the past. But now they are trying to be more innovative now because there's a large talent pool there. It's all single-child family. They produce very educated kids now. And I think, particularly with the big experiment going on there, that's consistent 1 5-year plan, not 5-year plan. And there's a competition among the Guangdong Bay and then Beijing and Shenzhen, Shanghai, and Chengdu, Chongqing you mentioned. So I think on top of that, we have a Chinese talent. Every year there are about 700 Chinese students going around the board, and then they're coming back and forth. So I think one of the things that we need to do is we need to welcome global talent come to China and then really become a hub of innovation. So I think now with China taking the lead on the clean technology, on the EV cars, on the solar panel, and so that could be a breakthrough. Another one could be in infrastructure. So I think all those things can lead more. And also China has have a better life expectancy now. Aging is also there. China is getting aging now, but pharmaceutical, medical innovation will be also needed. So I think let's peacefully compete that, but also with the global system to sustain that, rather than we really become isolated and become different silos and everybody reinvent. And we have to really get rid of those geopolitical fears, and we really work together with the UN, reinforce that, and also multilateral institutions. So it's really great that we have a different path of globalization, of modernization, the Chinese style of modernization, but also global style of modernization. We have to work together, I think, to innovate for the better world.
Thank you very much. Even we are in an intellectual hub, in a Budapest Eurasia Forum, and as we learned from the Governor Matocsi of the 4T models, talents, knowledge, capital, and technology can combine together for the winning of the future. So the President, Huiyao Wang, thank you very much for being here, and we will continue of the panel of the Geopolitics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. CSIZMADIA, for leading this brilliant discussion. It was a valuable experience to hear your conversation. And now it's time to move to the panel discussion. Therefore, let me invite Ms. Elena Rovenskaya, Program Director at International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis, who will moderate the panel discussion dedicated to geopolitics. Ms. Strovanskaya, welcome. I give the floor to you to lead us through the panel discussion.
Thank you very much. Hello? Can you hear me? Yes, now it works. And let me join the previous speakers to thank the Central Bank of Hungary in the first place for inviting me to moderate this very exciting topic, geopolitics and technology. We will continue in this panel what has been now started in the fire chat, and let me now invite our panelists. I would like to introduce Mr. Ying Rong. He is a Vice President and Senior Research Fellow of the China Institute of International Studies. Previously, he had served as Director for International Strategic Studies and American Studies at the same institute. His main areas of research include China's neighborhood diplomacy and South Asia politics and security. Welcome on stage, Mr. Rong. Welcome. Please. Yeah. Now let me introduce to you Mr. Marton Schorbel. He is a Chief Executive Officer of the Hungarian Institute of International Affairs. Since 2015, he has been the extraordinary and plenipotentiary ambassador of Hungary, and he served as Deputy State Secretary responsible for cultural diplomacy at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Welcome on stage, Mr. Schorbel. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you Professor Bernard Jung. He is Emeritus President of Asian Bureau of Finance and Economic Research at the Business School of National University of Singapore. He is Chair Professor and China's Ministry of Education appointed Changyang Scholar visiting the Southern University of Science and Technology. Prior to that, he also was Dean of National University of Singapore's Business School. Welcome to the panel. Now, let me introduce to you Ms. Soon Young Park, who is joining us online. She is the Director at the Regional Cooperation and Integration and Trade in Climate Change and Sustainable Development Department at the Asian Development Bank. She leads a team of experts to develop strategies and approaches to support regional cooperation and integration. Welcome, Ms. Park. Can you hear us? Well?
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you.
Welcome to all panelists again. And without further ado, I would like to start our panel. And my first question will be to Ms. Park. Before the panel, we watched the video that provided us with some estimates of the possible impact of the ongoing fragmentation, economic and geopolitical fragmentation that we are observing right now, the estimates provided by IMF, that indicated there could be quite substantial losses in terms of the long-term GDP growth from this ongoing fragmentation. As the Director of the Regional Cooperation and Integration and Trade, you follow closely development in the global markets, of course. How do you assess the likely impacts of the currently emerging fragmentation on the development and adoption of new technologies across Eurasia?
Thank you. Well, this is actually an exercise that has been undertaken by many other organizations as well. Over the past several years, and also through the U.S.-China trade conflict as well as the pandemic, what we have seen is increasing trade and economic fragmentation. As you also illustrated in the earlier video of the IMF study, this trade and then economic fragmentation actually causes economic losses across many economies. Our own analysis also shows that about 3 percentage points of GDP, especially in the Eastern Bloc, when trade and then economic fragmentation is simulated along the US-China trade tension. Also, in recent years, what we have seen is there has been really rapid increase in trade and FDI restrictions, which hamper diffusion of technologies, which is also disproportionately affecting the emerging market and then developing countries.
Thank you. Thank you for highlighting these effects, and of course, developing countries are expected to be affected disproportionately, as it is the case with many other threats that are hitting us. Thank you for this response. My next question would be to Mr. Rong. As an expert in international relations focusing on China and other large Asian countries, in your view, how will the technological race between the two largest competing economies, which are, of course, the US and China, will progress and impact the states of Eurasia?
Well, okay. Thank you very much. Really appreciate for this opportunity. I think having listened to the previous speaker, Harry Wang's conversation about China's sort of pursuit for technological development for the sake of sustainable development, not only for itself, but also I think for the region and the world at large. I would say that it would be easier for us to understand the status or China and the United States, if there's a competition or race, technological race between them. For China, it's clear. I think for the sake of its own development, needs more driving forces. And at this moment, as China's economic development model is undergoing transition, I think technology innovation is the only viable choice. It ends up, of course, that in terms of the gap between China and the United States, it's narrowing, but still China is catching up. And the question is that how, I think, the United States, the leading player, the one that pursues, as far as we Chinese always want to pursue a dominance, predominance, how they view this phenomena. I think if you follow the reports of President Xi's meeting, the San Francisco's meeting, I think China made it very clear for China the problem or the related to technology, race or innovation or trade, technology thing is something like the right to development. China does not want its right to be deprived because of different phenomena. I think nobody wants to be deprived. For the United States, it's something that its status, its preponderance, dominance is being threatened or challenged because of a phenomena. I think that is the game. And that is, I think, as far as I can see, this departure, the point of departure to understand for that. How it would impact Eurasia, states in Eurasia. Well, again, I think China made it very clear it is ready to engage a competition, healthy competition with rules, right? Not want to be, I think, subject to unilateral sanctions. Does not think it's a good idea. I think for now, of course, the United States also too, that decoupling or even de-risking is a good idea. So for Eurasia, the last point I make is that for Eurasia, state in Eurasia, I think you are not the subject that passively receiving or managing the impact. Rather, you should be more proactive in managing in shaping this debate or this race. That is, I think, exactly what we are doing. And China is very much open and would like to work with that. And I hope the United States too. Thank you.
And of course, the events like this is a good place to advance this conversation. My next question would be to Mr. Jung. As an expert in markets and Asian economies as well, how do you see the prospects of achieving SDGs? As it was discussed in the morning, we have problems with achieving them at the global scale despite individual successes of individual countries. But in the current time of fragmentation, economic and geopolitical, how is the prospect of achieving SDGs affected by that, do you think?
When you mentioned the EDG, it's very natural for me to think about the UN report. The UN report say very clearly that they want this 2030 agenda, and they plead for people, for the planet, for co-prosperity, peace, and partnership. And I think the world somehow, unfortunately, has gone the opposite because of some countries' behavior. So what my response to you would be like, first, do some quick point about some quick taking stock of the negative out of that. And second, I want to point out that there's really some silver lining that I think is good for the world. The first thing is that when we look at the UN report, the 2015 report, it has 17 goals. You point to me about the 17 goals earlier today. One of the goals is really enhance regional and international cooperation on and access to science, technology, and innovation, and enhance knowledge sharing for sustainable development. Clearly, we're not doing that. Somehow some politicians take advantage of dissatisfaction of some voters on the losing side of the exercising of comparative advantage, and somehow turn it into protectionism, and at the same time invoke this fear about winners take all, and all this thing, gradually somehow married with national security. That's really extremely dangerous. Why do you want national security? Because you have an enemy. So why do you create an enemy? And once you get that, there's nothing will stop the world, especially with our social medias and so on, that get into really nasty blame narrative that really is poisoning the global atmosphere. And I want to point out the three negatives. Number one, we all talk about from this protectionism to national security and to justify the embargoes, the sanctions, the cheap policies, and so on. Do you know that actually, if you look at the data, the U.S. chip semiconductor companies' market value underperformed the NASDAQ last year, and was really very bad in 2021 too. And you notice that anytime that they have some policy announcement, the market value of TSMC would drop. So the first thing is that they are not winning. The second thing is that we saw at the beginning about the minus 7% to 12%. All this thing is not going to hurt the rich countries who are suffering, the 85% of the world's population. And you know that there are more than 850 million people going to bed with a hungry stomach. And why do we do this? This kind of thing really hurts they themselves, their industry, and hurt the whole world. And all this decoupling, reshoring, all this are just utterly inefficient. So I think the process created three things. They hurt themselves. Number two, they hurt the rest of the world. And number three is that creation of the blame narrative, the mutual blame narrative, is now really hurting the world to gain one of the goals about peace and the other goal, prosperity. And also with all this, it hurts our sustainability. So all this are the negative, but there's a positive. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me to be here. What I hear and what I witness is a lot of awakening by the third party. The world is ours. Many of us come to the conclusion that we can take things on our own. Singapore and Hungary, actually, before I came on the 21st, I was having breakfast with your ambassador, with Hungary's ambassador. She told me explicitly that we don't believe in decoupling and we believe in cooperation. And actually, the world, I mean, if you think about, like we talk about the chips getting into the Moore's law so well is because we exercise specialization and cooperation. Without that, we don't get it. Okay, so many of us today, we're hearing about cooperation, about using available technology and sharing our experience to try to make the world a better one. More than just sustainability, more than just the EGD, but really make the world a better one and all be happier.
We will come back to this very inspiring and visionary point that you are now making about cooperation in a little while. And your mention of the enemies and increasing perception of each other as enemies, this is why...
By the way, if I may, you know, like, if you think about it, the rise of China has contributed tremendously in reducing the inflation fear. And also many of the contribution of savings contributing to holding of the T-bills and so on and so forth. When we were cooperating, you know, we don't see the goods. But now when we are not, we can see the goodies that we're missing.
Yeah, so this notion of threats without enemy actually is emerging now. So climate change, all other problems that sustainable agenda covers are actually threats without enemies. They are our collective threats. And the notion that UNDP coined at some point, socio-ecological security, is something that we have to pay more attention to, as again this conference highlights. We will come back to this topic in a little while, but now I want to ask Mr. Schöberl, as the Chief Executive Officer of the Hungarian Institute of International Affairs. You are following and having comprehensive knowledge about the Central and Eastern European region, including Hungary, so-called CEE region. So what are the strategic aspirations of the countries of that region at the moment in terms of the global technological development? And how do the strategic aspirations of these countries interface or interplay with strategic interests of other countries with whom they would like to cooperate?
Well, first of all, I'd like to express my appreciation towards the organizers. It's a great pleasure to be here in this wonderful conference, in this fantastic panel with such an esteemed company. And well, it's obvious even for us diplomats who are not necessarily experts on technological issues, that the global technological development is not only the most severely competitive sector, but also a focal point of great power rivalry. The weaponization of economic relations has triggered the restructuring of global supply chains, making traditionally open economies in Central and Eastern European countries highly vulnerable. It is important to take a note here that the CE countries are mostly small economies, with small markets divided by several factors as language, different taxations, different development level, etc., etc. And consequently, being highly vulnerable, the primary strategic goal of CE countries is driven by the fear of falling behind. We here in this region, therefore, actively seek secure positions in the currently reconfigured supply chains, particularly in the realm of technology. As the countries differ within their national interests, of course, there are various approaches are followed in this region. Baltic nations or Poland or Czechia, they are making concerned efforts to integrate into semiconductor supply chains. The broader focus on artificial intelligence is a widespread topic in the region, of course, researched and investigated by think tanks, universities, and businesses. Also, numerous startups are dedicating their efforts to the field of quantum computing. And Hungary, in particular, is steadfast in its commitment to becoming a hub for innovation, aiming to attract high value-added technology from all across the globe. In Hungary, therefore, we strive to attract investments that represent high added value, spanning multiple technological areas. E-mobility is particularly prominent. Our goal is to converge Chinese battery technology with German automotive innovation. Additionally, noteworthy are cloud computing, where both German and Indian companies are present here, and telecommunications, including 5G, where Huawei is significant, alongside Western companies. Well, to sum it up, and of course to answer the second part of your question more precisely, I think that doors, well, even gates, shall be kept open to all opportunities. And this is in the heart of the Hungarian foreign policy and foreign economic relations policy, which has been already referred by Mr. CSIZMADIA. This is what we call connectivity. Since the geopolitical tensions, especially great power rivalry, de-risking and decoupling is totally against the interests of our country and our region. Moreover, I do believe it is against the interests of Europe as well. It is another question that, according to my opinion, some of the European countries still seem to be in favor of taking part in decoupling instead of connectivity.
Actually, may I make a suggestion, a request? When I heard you and I heard the Ambassador of Hungary talking about the collaboration in the high-tech area between your country and Singapore, all those are really fascinating illustrative examples to inspire people to cooperate. If you can put them all together on your webpage and let people read it, then you will set up the examples and create more of those kind of very meaningful collaborations that benefit the world.
Well, thank you very much. It's indeed a good idea. We are still trying to spread out the information on connectivity as a foreign policy goal as well.
Yes, indeed. And thank you for giving this comprehensive list of examples of these technologies that Hungary is already developing and cooperating on this with other countries. And that brings me exactly to the next question that I would like to ask everybody. And that is, what are the new technologies? What are the newest trends that you are observing in the sphere of technology that may be, in turn, affecting the geopolitical dynamics in the coming, let's say, decades? Are there such technologies that have the power to set the geopolitics for the next years? Who would like to address it? Maybe Ms. Park?
Okay. Well, I think all the panelists already mentioned that the world is facing the common challenges like climate change, and the next really critical decades, we will need these cleaner energy technologies, and I do believe that two probably like a major technological sort of revolution that we will need to steer this the energy transition, as well as the making that energy transition also still compatible with the growth and development for the countries are still in need of the big economic transformation. Those will be also the AI, robotics, the four industrial revolution technologies. So those are two like a major that I believe that will shape the future decades for the world coming from these developing countries especially.
Well, sorry, there are two things that I would like to add. That there's a lot of discussion about artificially generated intelligence, AI, as the next milestone of the technological development. Well, for someone like me who comes from the public administration, I'm not that confident that it would be fortunate to designate a single technology or a singular trend in research and development that determines global competition. it's not just an it's not just an empty cliche to talk about the technological revolution. We are indeed witnessing revolutionary changes. While numerous technological innovations may have the potential to influence the future, there are many empty promises at the same time. Empty promises and even fraudulent activities disguised as innovation. Therefore, in my opinion, the winner and the winners of the technological competition, if I may take it from a more theoretical perspective, will be those who can sift through and prioritize various technological advancements most quickly and accurately.
Mr. Rong, would you like to add to this?
Yeah, I would just echo that by saying, yeah, it is true. I think we are in an era, in a stage, I mean, where technologies are making big differences, both in terms of, the positive and the negative dimensions. I was, because of the time difference, I woke up, very early morning, and I would try to go over the presentation I'm preparing. And all of a sudden, I thought that, why let them just check the points I'm preparing with GPT. And it turned out it was quite a decent presentation, very well, I think, structured, which caused a lot of shock. The first question was, what is the utility of people like me? It's getting old, gray hair. So this is something I think for average people need upskilling, need training, and others. That's number one. But as I'm trying to understand the sort of impact of advancement of technologies, AI in particular, I realized that the negative side is even more scary. Yeah, talking about the how to manage or harness the negative side, and of course, so that it will play a more positive role in addressing, in finding, achieve the sustainability and others. So these are the areas we should focus on, and the platform like that and country like Hungary can play a very important role. You're a hub, you're a gateway, and you can bring these two opposing camps, opposing ideas together to see how we human beings, we mankind, can make a difference, not repeating the same mistakes. History.
Thank you for this comment. I hope that the natural intelligence still will remain, but can be complemented by what is called artificial intelligence. Mr. Jung.
I want to make 4 points. I'll be quick. Number one, I'm not truly a scientist in STEM, and so winning technology is very hard for me to gauge. But one thing that I know for sure, because of the techno-nationalism, I try to study the productivity of scientists from different nations in top journals and the share of citations and so on. It turned out that with all these policies, the productivity of some of the instigating countries, their scientists, has dropped. Their research productivity in terms of authorship share and citation share in top journal has dropped. That's point one. So maybe the whole world is hurting that we do not come up faster and better with the unique technologies. I say 4 points, so 2, 3, 4. There is something that climate change is in everyone's mind. And it's not about new science, but it's applying our science, like AI and so on, to deal with this. And even this is on the table together in the Biden and Xi meeting. So I see a sign of hope that there will be cooperation using AI and digitization and all this to help us to deal with very, very burning questions. Then actually, instead of 4, 3 points is good enough. The third point I want to make is that don't just think about the technology. If we want the world to be more sustainable, do not forget, household sustainability is very important. If there is an equation, input equal to output, and output is equal to what is wasted and what we demand. But if we demand less, there will be less pollution, okay? So the point is, really, we can save the world a lot more if we can share among nations and among companies about ways that would generate better household sustainability, by which I mean turn off the light, turn down the heater, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean by those. So there would be a lot of viable sharing that we can do to advance, not just through science, but through changing our behavior.
In your first example, just a quick comment, in your first example with the authorship of and citations of scientists, does this mean that ChatGPT should become a co-author of the scientific papers, maybe?
Sorry, ChatGPT would not pass the referee process.
If another ChatGPT is a referee,
so then far, still not yet, because a lot of the results from ChatGPT, you know, just, they do not withstand the rigorous refereeing. Any top journals, they can see through it.
Mr.
Yeah, just if I may, there are like two small examples on how people use artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, in a good way and a bad way, from our everyday life. I'm coming from a think tank. We have researchers who, at the same time, teach at different universities. And sometimes they do use ChatGPT in order to collect data, because it makes it much easier. They just like give one command to the ChatGPT to collect me data about, like, I don't know, a series of events in terms of foreign policy. It makes them easier. But at the same time, they are complaining when we are having lunch in the office that their students in the universities, a quite high percentage of their papers that they submit are created by ChatGPT at a normal university class. I mean, these are still peaceful examples, but this is why it came to my mind that how important it would be to help the society to adapt these technical developments and changes, and we should start actually integrating it in every layer of the society. I think about things like copyright laws, privacy, governance, regulation. What we can do in the policy-making level is to support the ongoing dialogue with conferences and panels like this, to make the decision-makers and stakeholders and the society aware of this kind of technological revolution.
Thank you for this comment. And again, your comment brings me to the next question. We did not agree on that, but yeah, thank you for doing that. Because I want to come back to the question of cooperation. And given the current time and the complexities of the current time and the degree of disagreement and even these perceptions of enemies, as was discussed before, what you think are the realistic topics and themes that around which a cooperation can realistically develop? In Eurasia, maybe in some parts of Eurasia. So where can we start to revive cooperation and this trend? And again, this question is to everyone who would like to pick it up. Please.
Well, I can go for it until the others think it over. I think digitalization provides a good opportunity for the integration of the Eurasian region. However, to establish technological, ethical, and business standards, solution must be first found for the development disparities among the countries in the region. There are, of course, significant differences in the digital transition between the Eurasian countries and sub-regions as well. So integration can be achieved by reducing these differences. However, it is also crucial to assess the exact extent of the disparities among individual countries. Therefore, the first step could be to find the metrics necessary for digitalization. We are aware that this poses a significant challenge within the European Union itself. The European Commission has been monitoring member states' digital progress through the Digital Economy and Society Index report since 2014. However, the rapid pace of technological advancement leads to constant methodological debates among member states. So I think this example also illustrates the challenges governments face due to technological progress.
Thank you. Who would like to present your view, maybe, Mr. Rom?
Let me try again. I think certainly cooperation, international, regional, or even bilateral, are desirable, are important. But I think at least in the context of what we are discussing, the rising geopolitical tensions, it's not easy. Yeah? So we need to start with some sort of a pragmatism, yeah, in a way. I would personally see what crisis that we are facing the most, the pressing, which create the need for cooperation. And at the global context, globally, I think the climate change, the need for transition, green transition, sustainable development, certainly I think stand out. The question is, who is going to take the lead? And which sort of, I mean, also in terms of the effectiveness. In this regard, I think China is tried its best. Not only I think the initiative has played a role in pushing, but also it serves as a catalyst to provoke similar, I mean, initiatives. Not that, I mean, meant to compete or complement the initiative. So, but these are all, I mean, what happened in the past years. As we look ahead, as we are, I think, working along these things, we need more concrete ideas. We need more practical sort of things. That is, I think, possibly the challenges we are facing. Everybody would say it's good, cooperation, but it's difficult.
I personally, well, first, I do not know this region as well as I should, so I don't feel I'm qualified to comment. However, I feel that there's a lot of similarity between Singapore and Hungary. You're both neutral. You both do not believe in decoupling, and you both have your own share of issues and problems in dealing with, whether it's about sustainability or other things. So I can see that there's a lot of companies from this region and a lot of companies in Singapore, and also maybe from China too. If these companies can share the experience and share the technology, so if there's a platform for them to continue to meet and share capabilities and technologies, I can see a lot of wonderful things that can happen to make us more efficient and also to make us realize that our innovation can apply at a larger scale. I wish I could come up with some examples. I remember some examples that was told to me that the ambassador from Hungary in Singapore told me, but I couldn't remember them. But maybe you can remember them. But there were so many very impressive examples led by medium-sized companies, and they're innovative and they can share data, they can share experience, and then suddenly the company would be invited to go to Singapore and start to do additional things, and all sides are happy.
Okay. Ms. Park?
So, yes. Well, I think, you know, in the newer technological innovations are really coming from both cooperation and competition. But certainly, there's going to be no winners coming from actually like a fragmentation in this world. Maybe it is difficult to pin down like just there's going to be like one single technology, and might be in fact it's probably it's even like ridiculous to think that there's going to be like one technology now that's going to be really dominating. I feel that technology nowadays are really interdisciplinary. It's not just like, there's going to be like only one. You've seen rapid sort of revolution of even the digital going into like really the machine learning, AI, and the Internet of Things. There are multifaceted like technological revolutions that are happening at the same time, and these are not going to be led by just one country or one firm or one scientist. And as the world is already very much interconnected, especially in the science and technology world, you are seeing like a really intricate sort of like in the value chain coming from very like various different sort of disciplines, different countries. While there are actually two major countries now, like US and then China, they publish probably the most in the scientific world. They are filing the most number of also the international patents. But when they are not sharing the ideas, with not really like somehow inspiring each other, we are going to be facing the stagnation in the technological revolution and then innovation. Luckily, like the data actually shows that despite some of these fragmentation and then trade tensions or like any kind of political sort of the facade that they have put on, we continue to see quite a significant collaboration, co-publication, and then really there's still the sharing these ideas between these two countries as well as around the world. But going forward, to really continue this interactive technological revolution, we need stronger cooperation. We need some kind of like international governance in technology and science collaboration, being able to allow continuous flow of ideas, continuous also like the providing some channels of data flows, and then the sharing of the information in both like public and then private and academia and also the business sectors.
I would like to add to what Sayon just said, since you asked us to speak to one another. So I pick up on what on her point. Very often, if we have an extremely hard problem, we need new science and new technology. But below that, there exist many, many situations that we have problems, but we have not met the existing solution. So it's about allowing the problems to meet the existing solution. And we also have existing solutions to find the problems. And this is what Sayon has just said about platform of governance for us to share. And she also said that there's a data sharing issue. I know that data privacy is really important, but there exist companies, actually from your country, that has the capability to share data without revealing identity. Okay, it's a very wonderful technique, and then Singapore has invited them to come in and help us to use the technology so that we can share more data. And in today's world, more data is more powerful. And so it is one illustration of collaboration between two neutral countries, and they may not be large, but they're significant, and this is really a good thing to happen.
Ms. Park, you mentioned international governance, and that is, of course, one way how we could strengthen cooperation that is so badly needed, as we just discussed. One institution there, again, coming back to that topic, is Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2030. Despite, of course, it involved a lot of compromises, and many would criticize the lack of comprehensive framework behind it and all that. Still, it's well documented and well justified that the whole creation of SDGs and this whole movement towards achieving them, even when we are not achieving them, we are not on track to achieve them, however, had a positive impact on many, many aspects of human well-being and on the cooperation itself. So how do you think could this process be improved? Of course, Agenda 2030 will end at 2030, whether SDGs will be achieved or not. What do you think we are learning from how it's happening now and how we could improve this process going forward beyond 2030? Again, the question is to everybody. Who would like to comment on that? Maybe Mr. Rong?
I'm not such an expert, but I'm listening very carefully. I think certainly the SDGs is very sort of an idea and vision that brings by pulling the resources, available resources, and also experience and technologies together to achieve sustainable development. I think it was the first time and led by UN. Of course, I think China has done a great job, and China, not only in terms of its own development, sustainable development, but also, I mean, making efforts to contribute to that, as I think the opening session, Ambassador Wu mentioned about GDI and others. This is just, I think, to be honest, just one, even though China takes up a large number of, in terms of population, poverty reduction. But there are other sort of countries that are also doing pretty well. And bring them together as we are, entering into the second part, halfway, out to achieve that. And I think the UN is going to take a stock of what is going to be do in the future, in the next remaining years. It will be good for each other, all the members to see how they can contribute their experiences, their lessons. And certainly the West, the US, that developed countries should do its job. But I think it is possibly it is also the right time, or it will be also good for this, developing countries or countries that has been doing pretty well in their own ways to share and to play a more important role. This is also very much important in terms of international cooperation.
Does anybody else want to add to this?
I totally agree with that. The fact that the SDGs are existing is a good sign. So you're right, maybe we're not going to fulfill any of them, most possibly. But the fact that these are on the table is a very good sign. I think there are different other good examples in terms of global cooperation, like the first AI summit recently held in London, where China agreed to work with the United States and the European Union and other countries to collectively manage the risk coming from the artificial intelligence. I think these are good news, that we do see the signs of this kind of cooperation. There's a lot of debate on how effective huge international organizations like the UN are. But anyway, their presence is still a good sign that the humankind is trying to do its best, in theory, to find those challenges that are actually affect each and every people on the globe.
Just enough to imagine the world without them.
We are talking about sharing of learning and so on. First, having all this on the agenda is great. Number two, sharing positive experiences is almost our nature. I want to ask two additional sharing. One is the sharing of the negative experience. Okay, earlier we talked about greenwashing and so on. So just sharing about our discovery of the whitewashing, greenwashing, and those would be useful. And then sharing of the unintended consequences is also very useful. And what I hope is that there is more than just about singing the glory, but also reviewing things that we could have avoided. It would be very useful.
We are coming to an end of our session, but Ms. Park, if you would like to still add a couple of words to this.
Yeah, well, I sure agree with all the panelists in that, the the global community have made that commitment to achieve these sustainable development goals itself actually sends a strong signal that we are in principle value working together, and that's actually a good thing. Under the Paris Agreement, we also made a strong commitment to keeping the climate change under control, and these global commitments are actually that it does in a way show that a lot of these global public goods cannot be achieved without cooperation. The experiences of COVID and then experience of a lot of like a financial crisis in the past or like any other natural disasters also shown us very clearly that if there are many the many sort of like these goals that cannot be done unilaterally by only one country, and then when we work together, these actually require global solution, and we need to work together. And then what those crises have shown is that these crises, when it happened, it actually delay the achievement of these development goals. The truth is, when there was a crisis, it actually increased the international cooperation. If it wasn't done at the global level, even at the regional level, there were stronger cooperation. During the COVID time, in fact, there was even greater effort to mobilize the vaccines and then mobilize the PPEs, medical supplies. We try, because we know that unilateral, individual country actions are not sufficient to protect us or shield us or mitigate any of these negative impacts. And then, that kind of urgency of the crisis bring nations together. But I do hope that that kind of urgency continues, because the climate change and then, a lot of these, the common challenges are not, these are actually urgent, and then they're not going to go away. And that requires us to continuously paying attention and continuously working together.
Thank you. Cooperation is required, more cooperation is required. Let's hope that it will develop, and let's all contribute towards that goal. And again, thank you, Central Bank of Hungary, for organizing this event that does exactly that. And thank you to the audience for being with us and listening to this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ravenskaya. This was indeed a dynamic conversation. And we also heard several stimulating remarks from our speakers. As our second discussion ended, we are going to have a lunch break, then move to the last session today, focusing on technology. For our guests who are here with us at the venue, we hope that you will enjoy the lunch and we'll have a chance to discuss further these interesting topics. Thank you and see you soon.